So, Jay, anything interesting happened in the good old U.S. of A this week?
Not at all. I'm so glad 2020's over. 2021 is just off to such a better start.
As we speak right now, January 4th, 2021, everything's going along smoothly. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better year. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day, but as of January 4th, 2021...
How much can change in 2 or 3 days?
Not much.
From today, January 4th.
And speaking of 2021, this is the year we promised we'd review The Blob, and also not to be confused with The Blob.
The Blob, the remake, was written by Frank Darabont.
Holy shit balls.
And there's several members of the cast of The Blob that are in the mist.
That's coming up. Stay tuned.
2021 will do that. It'll be competing with Avatar 6.
Right.
I arbitrarily, back when we reviewed The Mists, I just threw out a date, or year, to review The Blob. And here we are. I also said that we would be reviewing Avatar 6 in 2021, and we haven't even gotten Avatar 2, so we're more reliable than James Cameron.
Right. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Anyway, it's 1988's The Blob.
Yeah.
Which is not a film about Louis Anderson.
We're not going to review the original The Blob. We're not going to do a compare and contrasts because we don't care about the original The Blob.
Yeah, I have not seen the original The Blob. I've seen the original The Thing and the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. All, of course, have famous remakes.
Yes.
But
don't forget The Fly.
And The Fly, yes. There's a lot of old 50s B movies that were remade in the 80s. We complain about remakes now, but the 80s really was the time for it.
The difference was they were remaking B movies that could use an improvement.
And making them better, yeah.
Yes.
The only thing I remember about The Blob was the bowling alley scene when, was it a movie theater?
It's a movie theater.
Okay.
That's one of the holdovers in this, is the movie theater scene.
Where, I thought there was a bowling alley where the strawberry jam comes out of the wall. They reference it in this. They make 2 jokes.
Great. I killed the strawberry jam.
I think Kevin Dillon's like he picks up something on the ground. He's like,
oh yeah,
strawberry jam. He looks at the camera, and then they do a hard cut from the real Blob to someone eating Jell-O. A little nod at the original, a shot.
The hokiness of the original.
Yeah.
It's not just that the original is, because it's, I don't know, I don't think either of us are into 50s sci-fi B movies all
Everything's
that
about communism.
Everything's about communism. But it's, they're all very talky. There'll be a couple scenes with the monster or the threat, the giant ant or whatever it is, and then it's lots of scenes of people talking in rooms.
Richie, you old buzzard. I didn't know you were a chess player.
That's what I've been telling you,
Oh,
Dave.
this is
You're not
Steve
the only
Andrews,
thinker
Mr.
around
Porter.
here.
He seems to think the doctor got into some kind of trouble here tonight.
No.
My daughter?
Least I could have done is thank you for coming out here.
All we know is that they told us something had happened over at Dr. Hallen's house.
The scenes where the Blob attacks people, the 4% of the movie, or the monster in 50s B movies, right? Those are meant for everyone to throw their popcorn and scream. The other 96% is teens making out in the drive-in. That's why they have the long talking scenes.
Yes.
They knew their audience.
Oh, sure.
It's, come on, doll, let's go to the drive-in. I'm gonna show you a spooky movie. I don't like spooky movies. Don't worry, most of it's boring talking.
The most shocking thing in the original The Blob is that Steve McQueen is playing a teenager. He looks like he's 40 years old. The best thing about the original The Blob is the theme song.
Beware of the blob, it creeps and leaps and glides and slides across the floor, right through the door and all around the wall.
Anyways, I love this movie. I've forgotten how much I love it.
It's one that I watched here and there growing up, and I always really liked. And in this recent rewatch, I realized, kind of like when we talked about Tremors, our very first review, it's pretty much a perfect movie. From a structure standpoint, from a script standpoint.
Solid fucking script by Frank Darabont.
Yes.
The writer of The Mist, The Green Mile.
Shawshank Redemption, of course.
Shawshank Redemption.
Got his start in horror. This is directed by Chuck Russell, who directed Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Written by Chuck Russell and Frank Darabont. cinematographer was the cinematographer of all of David Cronenberg's early movies. We got a couple David Lynch cast members. It's the perfect stew.
I felt it felt Lynchian. I think it was the diner.
Yeah.
It felt Krugerian, Freddy Krugerian. The scene where the girl is taken home by her parents, and the mom's like, "Here's a sleeping pill. Just go to sleep, and you're safe now." You know, and she's like, "I'm not taking your sleeping pills, Mom." It's Heather Langenkamp.
There was a scene that was cut
melting
out of Nightmare on Elm Street 3, so they just reused it in this.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's a sleeping pill. Whatever.
It's kind of looks out a window, and then you got it's Kevin Dillon, the brother of Matt Dillon, I assume.
Yeah.
As the biker punk outcast. He was
The most amazing mullet you've ever seen.
He was a little like the other character from the first Nightmare on Elm Street.
Like Rod.
Yes, Rod, and who ends up in prison. So does Kevin Dillon. And then wasn't Johnny Depp sort of like the quarterbacky kind of guy? Like,
Yeah, he was sort of a sportsy guy. He
Right.
was the main girl's kind of boyfriend.
right. And then you have the other guy in this.
Although the guy in this gets dispatched a lot earlier than Johnny Depp. Which is worth pointing out when we talk about the script. This movie does a great job of every 10 minutes or so kind of resetting and keeping the story interesting.
Yeah, well, it's a 95-minute runtime, perfect, flawless execution in every regard. So I wrote my notes
Oh,
on an ancient form of communication.
is that a piece of papier?
A papier.
Papier?
Papa.
I've heard of those.
It is printed out on a computer. I originally wrote with my hand.
Oh.
I have a little notebook, a spiral notebook with lines on it, and I use something called a penna.
Oh.
Not a pencil, but a pennen.
Okay.
It has
I
ink
have
in
vague
it.
memories of these things.
Yeah, it has ink in it, and you write with you could create words with your hand, like by the motion that you use a penna. And I did that while watching the film, but I translated it into computer form because I can't read my own handwriting after the fact. But I wrote all the setups and payoffs.
There's numerous, yeah.
The most basic thing that even Wonder Woman 1984 forgot to include is the basic concept of setups and payoffs. And these are all rudimentary things that we talk about in all of our reviews.
Yeah.
We talk about acts. There's acts, there's setups and payoffs, and then there's character arcs. Those are your three real big things that you're supposed to include in a script if you want it to work.
But we should point out, you can't avoid these things. You can break the rules, but you have to replace it with something interesting and not just a jumbled mess of nonsense, like a Wonder Woman 1984.
A famous author once said, in order to break the rules, you must first learn them. And so Frank Darabont is proving he knows the rules here, and he can break them later in life when he writes such things as Self-Defense Redemption, etc. But this, he's like, I'm playing it safe.
Well, it's a Blob movie. This is the perfect movie to do that with.
Over the top of it. But setup and payoff. First one, motorcycle jump.
Yes.
Our hero, what's his name?
His character's name is Brian Flagg, and knowing that Frank Darabont is a Stephen King fan, I'm wondering if Flagg is a reference to The Stand, because that's the main villain in that movie, and that story's name.
I love all the character names in this, by the way. They're all great. But anyway, you got setups and payoffs. First one, motorcycle jump. Brian Flagg, a.k.a. Kevin Dillon. I think they call him Flag for short in
most
the
of the
script.
time.
He is attempting to jump his motorcycle over a broken old bridge because he has nothing else to do.
Yeah.
He is the product of a broken household, an alcoholic mother. His father left. He's turned punk. He's an outcast in their little small town, which is a great setting. They show it.
Yes.
And a lovely little matte painting of a tiny isolated town.
Which also makes you feel Twin Peaksy. This little small town with all these likable characters surrounded by the woods.
Yeah, so he's trying to do the motorcycle jump. He fails, of course, and then later in the film, he has his chance to do it again when the stakes are high. And he does it. By golly, he does it, because he's our protagonist. And then he works in a bike shop fixing cars and mechanics shop, right? And they tease the snowmaker machine. His coworker is chilling sodas or beers in the snowmaker machine. Jay, do you remember any other quality setups and payoffs? Let me just ask you this.
There's the little kid with a zipper.
The jacket.
The jacket, yeah.
The mother says, you got to take your jacket. I don't want to take my jacket. You got to take your jacket.
My fucking zipper, Mom, you stupid bitch.
Yeah,
That's what he says.
Normally, you would think the jacket would save his ass.
Yeah,
that's the thing that he slips out of when he's falling off the building, but he's able to hold on to it. But no, it causes problems. I also like, this isn't really a setup, it's more foreshadowing, which is also important. The snow globe.
Yes.
And of course, the whole town is built around the ski industry. But, and it's not even mentioned that it's Christmas time. I don't know, I think it's fall.
Yeah, they're worried about in the coming winter if there'll be enough snow.
It's going to be a good season. But she's laying in the bed, and next to her bed is a snow globe. It doesn't show her shaking it up, but the snow is dripping.
You know what's going on.
Yeah.
You know what they're doing.
Which is a nice setup for the ending.
Yes.
Best use of a snow globe since Citizen Kane. Can I talk about one of my favorite scenes in the film?
That's what we're here to do?
And how it could be altered.
To make it worse?
To make it... I was watching the movie and I started laughing out loud because I rewrote the movie in my head. I punched up the script in my head.
You punched up Academy Award-winning Frank Darabaum's script?
I did. I'm sorry, Frank. So our hero, Paul, or temporary hero, Paul, the high school quarterback who's in love with Meg, and his friend Scott Jeske go to the pharmacy. Scott Jeske wants condoms.
Look, pal, give me a pack of Trojans and a bACK spray.
Because Scott Jeske is a potential rapist. He's not a rapist. I won't call him a rapist. He was on his way.
He was cock-blocked by the Blob.
He was cock-blocked by the Blob. He has a bar cart in his trunk. It's kind of amazing, and he has all these like things in there. And he's like, "Baby, you're wearing my ring," and he has a pile of them in his trunk. He's a dirtbag.
Yes.
And
is it implied there that he put something in her drink? Because she gets very sleepy. She's not just like drunk; she like passes out. And I was wondering if the implication is that he was supposed to have drugged her.
I don't think so, because he's surprised when she passes out.
Okay.
He's more like ooh, an opportunity. The scene is Scott Jeske and Paul. Paul is our hero. He's our all-American high school quarterback.
He's the Steve McQueen of this movie. He's going to make it to the end.
Right. They go into the pharmacy together, and Scott Jeske, the dirtbag, goes up to the counter. He's like, "Yeah, Mr. Pharmacist, buddy, give me a pack of Trojans and some bACK." He goes to the back to get him the condoms, and then the priest shows up.
Haven't seen you at the Sunday services lately.
Oh, you want the ribbed or the regular?
It's from a friend over there, and he points to Paul, who's completely unaware.
Yes.
He's being duped, and the priest says, he's obviously judging it, and then so Scott, the pre-rapist, awful sleazy dirtbag, pays for his stuff and leaves. Then the pharmacist just said, "Now, Father, how can I help you?" And the father turns to him and says, "I'll have one pack of Trojans."
That's your rewrite.
That's my rewrite.
Okay.
That's funny.
So your rewrite is not restructuring the film in any way. It's just adding jokes. Okay, fair enough.
And add a nice joke. I laughed out loud when I thought of that while watching the film.
Well, congratulations.
In hindsight, I'm glad they didn't put it in, but... Yeah, this the small town aspect of it, the priest, the religion angle, because the priest gets, once he sees the Blob, he of course
changes his whole perspective.
Yes, he's just a regular old priest, and then he sees the Blob and he thinks it's like, I don't know, end times, and then he starts his own cult in the middle of nowhere for an end times cult, and that's that whole like the religion, the small town, like all the different characters. It's very like The Mist.
Yeah.
Nobody turns on each other, but and then of course the government. I know The Mist is from a Stephen King book, but you have the secret government experiment, which added an extra layer on it.
Yeah.
Because you could go full Don Doler and just have
Well, that's-
lands from outer space and that's it.
Yeah, well, that's like I was saying earlier, how every 10 minutes or so, the movie just completely refreshes itself. Because you think, like, the original The Blob, it's a blob, it's a creature from outer space.
Right.
And this movie sets it up as that. So then, the revelation that, oh, this is man-made, it's chemical warfare, they're doing tests, and then they close off the town so it doesn't spread. And then it's like, oh, okay, that's the twists, which has been done, especially in that era. You have, like, aliens. But then the twist on top of that is that the head of that whole organization, he falls into the sewer, and immediately all the rest of his crew just turn on him.
Let's scrag that son of a bitch.
It would have been really easy to just make that entire government organization all bad guys.
Right.
And so the twist where we see multiple ones that feel terrible about what's happened.
Right.
One of them, by the way, did you recognize one of the scientist guys?
At this rate, by next week there may be no U.S.
You've been watching Tim and Eric recently, so I thought maybe you would recognize him.
Who is he on Tim and Eric?
He just shows up once in a while because I alwaed cast these like weird looking side people. He's one of those guys that shows up.
Okay.
And he's in this movie. He's also the voice of Lord Zed on Power Rangers, the big muscle red guy.
Okay.
He died somewhat recently, but there's a lot of that guys in this movie, and he's one of them.
Okay.
Another one is the guy they run into, the other guy in the white suit that they run into in the sewer, where he's got like the crack in his suit.
Yeah.
That's Bill Moseley, who's been in like every Rob Zombie movie.
Sure, I know Bill Moseley.
Lots of those guys. The projectionist at the movie theater.
Yeah.
It's that guy.
You know, hot dogs get a bad rap. They got a cool shape. They got protein. You like hot dogs, right?
Yeah.
The movie's just chock full of that guys.
Well, and isn't the Pee Wee bum in this? The Jimmy Craig
No,
Clark?
the bum at the beginning is the Pee. It's another bum.
It's not the crazed drunk driver bum from Back to the Future.
No, I'm surprised Buck Flower isn't in this movie.
There's actors that make their career as bums. I swear to God, I thought that was a Jimmy Craig Corn and I Don't Care bum.
I can see that. Similar look.
Jay, you know your bums. Is it because you're dressed like one? Anyways.
But going back to the small town aspect of it, set up perfectly at the beginning. We get all these great atmospheric shots over the opening credits. It looks like the opening of Day of the Dead or something, where it's like this town is abandoned. And they're like, oh, are we seeing the aftermath of the Blob? Like, the movie's really good at playing with your expectations like that. And then we see a graveyard. And so like, oh, but then you just dolly over, you pan over. Everyone in the town is at the football game because it's a small town, and that's what you do.
Right.
That perfect like setup of say it's subverting your expectations.
And it's funny you should mention that, Jay, the graveyard. I thought that was a beautiful visual. Graveyard, and then you pan over to the football game.
Right next door.
Which is true. Because out of curiosity, when I see movies like this, it brought back that The Pit, which was filmed in somewhere in northern Wisconsin. We actually drove to all the locations of The Pit, took screen grabs and found where they shot stuff. And I love that. I don't know why I'm fascinated with movie locations.
Well, especially when it's like an unusual location, where it's like, this is some small town we don't usually film at.
Yes, I'm not going to drive to the Joker steps.
Right.
But when it's like just an oddball fucking place where you don't go to film a movie. Toronto, you find some background shot in Toronto, of course. But this is filmed in Abbeville, Louisiana. I don't know if I'm saying that name right. Abbeville. Abbeville. It's a very small town.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, look at my Google Maps. And let me grab frames, and I found all sorts of wonderful stuff. The football field is right next to the graveyard.
That's funny because I watched the commentary track, and they make a point of mentioning that was in the script. So it's like
they must have looked for it.
Yeah, like did they find a town specifically because they wanted one that had a football field right next to a graveyard. It's very specific.
It
It wasn't like they location scouted and they said, "Oh, we could do this shot." Like they had the idea then. It was in the script.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They must have scoured small town America to try to find that exact thing. And then they saw like, okay, well, there's like two kind of main streets, right? And there's the courthouse, which is doubled as the town hall. They call it the town hall. There is an actual police station, but they never show the exterior of the real police station. What they show is like this red brick building that kind of looks like I think it's a bank or something. When Kevin Dillon gets let go by the police, that's where he came out of, and has the cigarettes.
Which is right down the street from the diner, which is another main location.
Yes, it's the exterior where the famous manhole cover sequence happens.
Okay.
And there is an actual manhole cover there.
Yeah, the whole climax of the movie takes place on that street.
Yeah. The diner, the exterior of the diner is a real diner, but the inside most likely a set. Right?
The inside is a set, and this kind of, we'll talk more about effects in a bit, but what's interesting about that is it wasn't just, because you see there's a big window and the door is all glass, so you see across the street, and it's not just like a big, like they'll use like a big painting or a backdrop or whatever. It's actually like a half-scale miniature of across the street.
Weird.
So they're doing like forced perspective.
Yeah.
So there's actually some depth to it.
Yeah.
Which I've never heard of a movie doing that before, as far as the outside of a location like that.
The closest thing I could think of that's very similar is the exterior of Dana Barrett's apartment building, which is in New York City. It's a real place. And then when they had to do the street coming apart, they did that in Los Angeles, where they recreated the facade, the front entrance of the building.
Well, sure, but that's full scale.
Well,
the idea of doing like a half-scale forced perspective for just a mundane diner scene is interesting.
And that might be the case too with when the waitress of the diner breaks out of the window and ends up in the alley. They show her looking down the alley, and she sees a phone booth there. And that's the famous phone booth scene, one of the most terrifying scenes in motion picture history. And you see across the street.
Yeah.
And it looks like the real across the street because I've done this. I've taken the two images of the Google Street View and her perspective down the alley in the movie, and it matches up pretty perfectly. So it might have been what you said, where they did a miniature, and that alley is on a set.
Yeah, that could be.
Or it was the real alley, and then once she got into the phone booth,
they just recreated.
Then it turned into a soundstage situation, obviously, because they have to do all the stuff coming in.
Yeah.
The dummy and
the overhead shot is a miniature dummy, which looks pretty good.
But then one building I couldn't find was the movie theater exterior.
So some of that could have been shot in L.A. I know all the wood stuff was shot in Griffith Park, where any wood scene in any movie shot in L.A., they shoot in Griffith Park.
Yeah.
Although when you watch the movie, you would never really think of it. Doesn't look like Griffith Park. Like the way they light it and stuff. Which is worth pointing out. We recently recorded a commentary track for Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
And on that, we talk about the lighting of the woods in that movie.
Yeah.
How they just took giant lights and blasted the trees, and it looks terrible. And this movie has that unnatural lighting for the woods. Lots of movies do, but it's a lot of it's like backlighting with fog. It's not realistic looking, but it creates such a great moody atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
that it completely works.
Let's talk about the blob.
The titular blob.
The titular blob, and its subsequent path of destruction, which is what you pay for at the box office,
and what you don't get from the original The Blob.
Right.
Hey, look, there's a blob. Let's go into a room and talk about it for an hour.
So, the Tin Can Man, or the whatever they call him in the credits, aka not the Pewee Bub, lives alone in the forest, and he's the only witness to the meteorite that crashes.
Yeah.
Which I was disappointed in the pyrotechnics. The composite shot of the effect of the fireball going over him was great.
Yeah.
But then it hits the forest, and then it just does one of those sparks. Like, you know, like kind of like pyrotechnics that you use like where people are around. They're so weak.
Okay.
I wanted a big one. It was a little disappointing.
Maybe they bought some fireworks for that scene, and just a lot of them were duds.
Yeah, it was all right, but
That scene is one of the few things that's right out of the original too, with the bum when it attaches to his hand. That's directly from the original.
Okay.
One of the few, that and the movie theater scene are pretty much it.
But the blob is just a disgusting pile of meat, of grossness that latches on and consumes.
And it's purplish, which is interesting. That makes it stand out.
Right.
It's not like brown or green or something more sort of organic looking.
Right.
Yeah.
Human beings find certain colors gross. Brown and green, for example. Pink, not so much. Could have been blue, too.
Sure.
You ever see those commercials on TV, Jay? You know, like when they have maxi pads commercials or diaper commercials.
Oh yeah, where they always use some sort of blue liquid.
It's usually blue. It's usually like a light blue color. Like, watch how absorbent this maxi pad is, or this diaper is. And they just pour blue. If they poured yellow or brown,
turn off all their audience.
You'd be like, oh yeah. So they pour like a color that doesn't normally come out of the human body.
Right.
Hot pink, blue. Right. So the blob is weird. Grabs onto the guy's arm. They hit him with their car. They're out on the date and take him to the hospital. Eventually, the blob just consumes the guy.
Well, this is the twist. They kind of set up Paul as if he's going to be the hero of the movie, and then 20 minutes in, he's gone.
Yep.
And it's great too because the blob is translucent. So it's not just horrifying that this thing is eating and growing, but we're actually seeing people be digested by it.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly disgusting.
Right. That is.
And adds an element of like body horror to the movie too.
Oh yeah.
In addition to everything else.
That's like clockwork. That's the 30-minute mark.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's when, you know, you take that right turn and everything changes.
Yeah.
Before it's just like, well, there's a weird thing on the guy and blah blah blah. But then once that shot when Paul is consumed by it and screaming and his hand is out, I mean it's great.
Yeah.
Like the effects in it are great. And at that point in the movie, I'm like, this holds up.
Yeah.
That is
Oh,
frightening.
yeah.
And they kill a kid, by the way.
That's going back to talking about them kind of taking unexpected turns.
You
Didn't expect a fucking kid to.
What is the single children's or YA book series that gave you the most trauma? You know what I mean. The ones you love but still left you clutching your stuffed animals or Beanie Babies or whatever and staring wide-eyed up at your ceiling all night. Now, from Harry Potter to Watership Down, there are plenty of contenders. But let me tell you, there's one series that took this concept and absolutely ran with it. And I'm, of course, talking about none other than the Animorphs. This incredible series dominated the 90s and was practically a staple in every single bookstore, library, and scholastic book fair. And pound for pound, it's probably hands down one of the darkest of the popular series aimed at younger audiences from that era. Now, if you only read a couple of Animorph books way back when, or if you can only just remember their unhinged but also gloriously 90s covers, you might be surprised just how trauma-inducing this series actually was. Because, hey, it starts off simple enough, just kids who can morph into animals, but quickly pivots into the horrors of war, alien genocide, and PTSD, but also simultaneously really bizarre things like space broccoli and eating through hooves. But it's also so much more than that. It's grounded in deeply human themes, fascinating world building, and an unforgettable sense of dread mixed with adventure. And over the years, the fandom has remained fiercely dedicated, and there's even been some attempts to revitalize the series, along with some, let's say, interesting adaptations. So in this video, we'll explore its brutal high-stakes premise, its wild history, and the strange adaptations, and finally where everything stands today to discover whatever happened to the Animorphs. Hi everyone, my name is Otto, and welcome to Exits Examined. We'll be exploring series, franchises, and more after their prime time has seemingly come to an end. If that sounds good to you, there's a like and subscribe button below, and I want to give an enormous shout out to my patrons who make this channel possible. You guys rock. Also, quick heads up, light spoiler warning for the Animorphs, although I'll give a larger spoiler warning before I start talking about the really spoiler stuff. Alright, there's a metric ton to unpack with this series, and trying to explain Animorphs to the uninitiated, well, things can get complicated really fast. But let's start at the basics. Animorphs is a book series written by Catherine Applegate and her husband, Michael Grant, that absolutely took the 90s by storm. It sold over 35 million copies and became a staple of scholastic book fairs, and it was a must-have for any kid at the time. Now, on the surface, it's easy to see why. It's a fun, action-packed adventure series about kids who can turn into animals to fight off an alien invasion, and that's some 90s catnip gold right there. But beneath all the cool morphine and sci-fi adventure, it's so much more than that. At its core, Animorphs is a war story. It's about morality and the cost of violence. Children lose limbs, make impossible decisions, and grapple with trauma, and it pushes far beyond what you'd expect from a typical kids series. It's all messy, brilliant, and there's just nothing else quite like it. So what's actually going on here in the story? Honestly, it's hard to know where to start because this series takes some truly insane twists and turns, but essentially, Animorphs is about an interstellar war between aliens, PTSD, and of course, a group of idiot teenagers with a death wish. Now, the story begins innocently enough, just 5 teenagers walking through a construction site on a regular night, but any sense of normalcy is violently and viscerally ripped away when a literal alien spaceship crash lands in front of them. Out of the wreck emerges a dying space centaur prince, which, yes, that's a thing, who tells them 3 very bad pieces of news. 1, there's a galactic war going on. 2, the bad aliens are already on Earth and they're infesting human brains. And 3, these teenagers are now humanity's only hope. Oh, and before he dies, he grants them a final gift/curse to morph into any animal they touch. And by dies, I mean Visser 3, the big bad of the series, immediately and graphically shreds him in front of the kids' horrified eyes, with his cries of agony haunting the gang for the rest of their lives. So yeah, this series has gone from 0 to 100 real fast. And if you think things are going to slow down from here, well, I admire your optimism. So, speaking of tonal whiplash, this wild duality of normalcy versus brutality is always present in the series, and I can't help but wonder how many well-meaning parents picked up these books for kids thinking, oh, what a cute story about animal transformations, only to accidentally traumatize their children for the rest of their lives. Even within a single book, the tone swings hard. Things often start low stakes, our core group of friends morphing into fun little animals, watching movies together, and pulling at our heartstrings. But by the end of the same book, there's full-on chaos with them getting into brutal fights. And when I say brutal, I mean absolutely metal. Our characters get shot at, pummeled, stabbed, and sometimes ripped apart in horrifying detail, with too many examples to even mention, but with the first one coming to mind when the gang morphs into ants and proceeds to get dismembered in horrifying detail by a rival colony of ants. So some of the more astute among you might wonder, how do these kids survive being maimed and physically shattered on a regular basis, which is a great question. But in order to answer that, we need to dig into what is even going on with the alien war and the bigger picture of the story. Because Animorphs isn't just some formulaic, episodic Saturday morning cartoon. This is a galaxy-spanning narrative epic, so buckle up because it's about to get weird. The Animorph books are canonically mostly set in the 90s, but more importantly take place during a galaxy-spanning war between centaur aliens, aka Andalites, and mind-controlling space slugs, aka the Yeerks. So who are these guys? Well, the Andalites are highly advanced, fiercely proud, and the creators of morphine technology, which allows living creatures to transform into any animal they've touched. They really seem like the good guys at first, but like with everything in this series, it's not that simple. Then, on the other hand, there are the Yeerks. Oh boy, those gosh darn Yeerks. The Yeerks are a classic alien concept of the parasitic slug, being these tiny, frail creatures, but they more than make up for it with their ability to crawl into other beings' brains and take full control of their body, which is absolutely terrifying when you realize that when a Yeerk controls a host, the host mind is still alive and fully conscious. You're essentially a prisoner in your own body, screaming silently while the Yeerk controls everything you say and do, which, again, this is a kid series. Now, the Yeerks are just messing around with humans. They've already enslaved multiple races, with one of the most terrifying examples being the Orc bAZAAR, a peaceful creatures turned into walking death machines by their Yeerk masters. They're basically armored shock troops with blades sprouting from their arms, legs, and tails. Now, it's important to note that some species willingly allied with the Yeerks, like the Taxons, which are giant, centipede-like monsters with an insatiable hunger. Now, bringing this back to Earth, the Yeerks have already infiltrated a large portion of the human population, and anyone could be a controller, which is a human host with a Yeerk in their brain. So, your teacher could be a Yeerk, the cops? Probably yours. Even the President of the United States? Well, don't worry, the series will get to that. And this paranoia creates an incredible tension throughout the series. The Animorphs can trust almost no one, although this is offset just a little by their morphine powers. Now you can tell Applegate had an absolute blast writing the morphine scenes. Each transformation is pure gold, with every animal feeling unique with its own instincts and priorities, and some of them are just so fun. When the gang morphs into animals, they kind of become the animal, so cats are really aloof, dolphins love to play, and red-tailed hawks love flying on thermals, which is where air rises due to heat. And that alone has become something of a meme in the community because one of the characters really likes thermals. But like with everything in the series, morphine is not just some breezy superhero power. Oh, no. It's a grotesque, visceral experience. The characters don't just change into animals, they feel their bones shatter and reform, skin warping, organs rearranging, and although painless, the halfway points between humans and animals is often described as an absolute abomination. But the struggle isn't just physical, there's mental battles too. The first time you morph, you have to fight against the animal's instincts, and you could lose yourself entirely trapped in its mind. And this is a big problem because of the huge risk of morphine is that if you stay in a morph longer than say 2 hours, you're stuck forever as that animal. But on the plus side, every time you morph, your body is fully healed, which is how the Animorphs survive getting maimed, eviscerated, and dismembered on a semi-regular basis. Now, our team of child soldiers uses battle morphs, which is basically like tigers and bears when they fight, but also use smaller morphs for espionage and reconnaissance, which is all extremely helpful in their brutal, no-holds-barred proxy war with themes of trauma, pain, and the horrors of conflict running throughout the entire series. And nowhere are these themes more powerfully explored than with the Animorphs themselves. So, who are they? Well, we got Jake, who is the group's natural but reluctant leader, and as the war drags on, he steps up, accepting the crushing weight of responsibility, but struggling to deal with the impossible decisions he's forced to make. Rachel, his cousin on the other hand, embraces the violence, at least on the surface. She's beautiful, fierce, and often described as an Amazonian warrior, but as the series progresses, her addiction to combat and chaos becomes kind of disturbing. Tobias is a loner from the start, and early in the series, he stays in morph too long and gets stuck as a red-tailed hawk forever. His story is kind of equal parts tragic and fascinating as he grapples with his new reality, and my guy really loves those thermals I was talking about earlier. Then we have Axe, short for Aximili Escruth Istim, and he is the lone Andalite. His perspective is a real highlight for the series, with his alien worldview making for some genuinely great moments. To blend in, he often morphs as human and quickly becomes obsessed with eating food since Andalites don't have mouths, instead eating with their hooves, which anyway, he quickly becomes addicted to cinnamon buns, which again has become a thing of meme beauty. Marco is the team's critical thinker, and he's always smart and ready with a sarcastic quip. He initially doesn't want to fight the war because understandably he's terrified of leaving his depressed father alone after already losing his mother due to a freak accident, which yeah, because this is the Animorphs, that plot point eventually gets super dark. Cassie is the group's moral compass. She's empathetic, highly skilled with morphine, and constantly wrestling with the ethical implications of the war. Now, what makes all of them so compelling is how they change over the course of the story. The Herculean task of saving the world against impossible odds completely and irrecoverably shatters their innocence. They grow and break, and their arcs are some of the most intense and believable I've ever seen in a children's series. Now, major spoiler warning for the next 5 to 8 minutes. Now, for most of the series, the Animorphs keep their identities and a mission a complete secret, even from their own families, because they can't tell who's a controller and who's not. So while they're going to school, attending gymnastics, or doing totally normal kid stuff, they're also fighting a war to save humanity. And if it's not already obvious, this isn't just some lighthearted Power Rangers scenario. Their lives slowly start to unravel as they desperately try to balance this impossible tightrope. Now, this is all exacerbated when the series constantly puts them in excruciatingly difficult situations, both emotionally and morally. Their friends and family sometimes get taken over by the Yeerks, leading to some devastating consequences, and things go wrong, sometimes horribly wrong, all the time. In one book, Jake gets infested by a Yeerk, and the group realizes that the only way to free him is to starve the Yeerk out. So Jake has to endure 3 days of hearing the Yeerk rage, plead, and slowly die inside his own head, all while he's forced to listen to every single one of its morbid thoughts. And that's not even the only time something like this happens, since there's a whole sub-arc involving David, and oh my god, David is just an entirely other thing. He was basically brought onto the Animorphs because they had no choice, but to make an extremely long, multiple book-spanning story short, he betrays them, does some pretty horrendous things, and the gang is eventually forced to deal with him somehow, and they have a moral debate about if they should just, kill him, and instead decide to trap him forever as a rat, which doesn't make them killers, but geez, just by the tiniest degree. And then there's an entire book where Tobias is trapped in a tiny cage being violently tortured. He's hooked up to a machine that cycles between pain and euphoria until he's nearly driven insane. Even after he escapes, and yeah, I know I've said this a lot, but get used to me saying this, he's forever scarred by the experience. And the stress of these traumatizing events and fighting a secret war eventually breaks and changes the team. Cassie actually quits the Animorphs at one point because it's all just too much for her, and Jake and Rachel hit their breaking points more than once, struggling under the enormous pressure of leadership. Well, he's stuck as a hawk, with this interesting subplot where he has confusing feelings for another female hawk, and there's even a scene where he succumbs to the hawk's instincts and eats a rat, feels pure joy, and immediately spirals into a psychotic breakdown because he thinks the bird is taking over. Charming stuff, right? Which again, this is a kid's book, by the way. So by the end of the series, these aren't the same wide-eyed kids we met in the early books. They've been through it all. Their innocence is long gone, replaced with deep emotional scars that will stay with them throughout their entire lives. And you best believe that the ending escalates everything. Alright, so let me give you one of my favorite things, a wildly oversimplified summary of the story. For most of the Animorphs, the team is basically running a guerrilla war. They're sabotaging the Yeerks wherever they can, stalling for time, and hoping that the Andalites, their supposed cavalry, will show up and save the day. But of course, things slowly but surely go off the rails. Now, eventually, the Animorphs are forced to blow their cover. They have to reveal everything, their powers, the alien war, and the whole terrifying truth, first to their families and eventually the entire world. This, of course, sets off a chain reaction, leading to a near nuclear war between the US and China, and finally a full-scale hot conflict between Yeerks and the remaining uninfested humans. The team is forced to make new Animorphs to bolster their numbers, recruiting willing, disabled children who in turn into literal cannon fodder. So yes, disabled children cannon fodder is a thing in this book series. Anyway, the Animorphs end up bombing a Yeerk pool, which is a success, but resulting in mass civilian casualties and the destruction of the Animorphs' hometown. And from there, the moral lines only get more and more blurred until they're basically non-existent. Jake becomes a cold, ruthless leader with almost no compassion left, and Rachel becomes a full-on killer. Every character you've grown to love is breaking, and not just by a little. They're morally gray at best and downright terrifying at worst. And then the final battle is brutal, dark, devastating, and a total gut punch. Victory comes, but at a horrific cost. Thousands of civilians, children, and soldiers are dead. Then the moment that probably haunted millions of wide-eyed, innocent readers was when the fan favorite Rachel sacrifices herself, and she dies after a violent and desperate battle, with the description of her final moments being absolutely heart-wrenching. Quote, "The human was silent. No begging, no pleading for life. At the end, acceptance came even to this strong, turbulent spirit." You said I could ask one more question. Did I make a difference? My life and my death? Was I worth it? Yes. You were brave, you were strong, you mattered. Yeah. Okay then. A small strand of space-time went dark and coiled into nothingness. End quote. The Yeerks are ultimately defeated, but at an enormous cost to humanity, the world, and of course our shattered heroes. And the final books are this raw, unflinching exploration of the necessity and futility of war. Every character is broken by the conclusion, and it's rare to see a YA series so fundamentally destroy its main cast with such brutal honesty. But that's probably a big reason why Animorphs continues to endure, because it doesn't really pull punches. It tackles incredibly mature adult themes head on, reminding us that some of the most impactful stories for kids are the ones that refuse to sugarcoat the truth. But if you thought Animorphs was done, it still had one last gut punch, a massive cliffhanger that seemed like the start of yet another war. And just to drive home the story of the series again, in the words of Applegate, quote, "Animorphs was always a war story. wars don't end happily, not ever. Often relationships that were central during war dissolve during peace. Some people who were brave and fearless in war are unable to handle peace, feel disconnected and confused. Always people die in wars, and always people are left shattered by the loss of loved ones, end quote. So as much as Animorphs hits you hard with its themes and story, I think another huge reason why it's so beloved is the world building. It's not just well thought out, it's packed with these weird, terrifying, and sometimes downright baffling elements, all while staying somewhat grounded in cool sci-fi concepts. You've got high-speed light travel, dinosaur morphine, which, yes, seriously, alternate timelines, and just a ton of other awesome stuff. And the best part is that a lot of these world-building elements tie directly into the story itself. Take, for instance, the slow reveal of Andalite society and how maybe, just maybe, they're not the shining paragons of virtue they make themselves out to be. We first get a hint of this when Axe performs this morning ritual where he points his own scorpion tail at his throat, chanting that he'd gladly sacrifice himself for his people. But then, as we dive deeper into Andalite culture, we realize that they're not exactly opposed to a bit of interplanetary genocide for the quote-unquote greater good. Then there's the Yeerk species. We get a deep dive into their hierarchy and political struggles, and what makes them stand out is that they're not just these mindless evil creatures. They have their own reasoning and insights that make them really empathetic. Quote, "Do you see this? This is what I am without a host body. Helpless, weak, blind. Do you see those flowers? You hate me for wanting that? You hate me because I won't spend my life swimming endlessly in a sea of sludge, while humans like you live in a world of indescribable beauty." End quote. And one of the most interesting is the Elemist. Basically, for all intents and purposes, a god playing this long, complicated game with another powerful being called the Krayak, who is trying to destroy worlds while the Elemist is trying to save them. But the catch is that they can't directly fight or they'll destroy entire sections of the universe, so instead they play proxy wars with their minions, with the Animorphs getting wrapped up in all of this and basically just being pawns in this galactic chessboard. There's also some wonderfully bizarre portions of world building, like the Chi, who were androids created by an advanced race of genius dogs. But because nothing in this universe stays happy for long, the Chi want to fight the Yeerk threat on Earth, so they go on a mission to break their pacifism, which is a thing. And this turns into a Doom-level scenario. Marco gets stabbed to death, which, don't worry, he comes back, and then the Chi android brutally wipes out dozens of Hork-Bajir and controllers in such an intense manner that even Rachel, who's no stranger to violence, is moved to tears and, you guessed it, let's say altogether, is traumatized for the rest of her life. For more weird world building, Broccoli was brought to Earth by aliens, and I could really just go on and on. And this incredible and often wild mix of ideas, heavy-hitting themes, and sci-fi concepts is doubly incredible when you realize that the Animorphs consist of 54 books published between 1996 and 2000, which is an absolutely mind-boggling 11 books per year, which is even more insane when you realize that Applegate was quite literally writing an entire other series called Everworlds at the same time. Now, this makes slightly more sense when you realize that a good portion of the Animorph books were written by ghost authors, although still outlined by Applegate. Now, talking about the books, the original Animorph covers are just absolutely iconic. And honestly, I think it's safe to say that these bizarrely awesome covers was probably the reason a lot of us picked up the books in the first place, just trying to understand WTF this is. And as a bonus, if you flip through the pages fast enough, you'd see a crudely animated flipbook effect of the transformation happening on the bottom corner of every page, which is such a fun little detail. As for the writing, each book switches up the point of view, so we get to see the world through the eyes of different characters every time, which keeps things fresh and lets us dive into each of their personalities in a unique way. Now, you might be wondering how this wild mix of animals, sci-fi, and war trauma came together, and it kind of makes more sense when you realize it wasn't just one person behind it all. It was actually a husband and wife writing team, with Applegate saying she wanted to write a series about animals, and Grant wanting to write a sci-fi story, so they just kind of used these two ideas together in a Frankenstein way, deciding that a science fiction premise was the best way to get kids into the heads of animals, which is nice and all, but also makes you wonder if making a war drama with PTSD and child soldiers was also the best way to do this. But I'm not arguing, because Animorphs holds up extremely well even as an adult reader, and this is probably one reason why the series' popularity exploded during the 90s. And it's hard to understate the massive success this series was, probably in no small part to the Scholastic book fairs, and since this was a Scholastic book, it had heavy mark in TV and bookstores. So if all this talk of war and sci-fi has you feeling a little overwhelmed, let me cheer you up with something that's guaranteed to make anyone happy. Stickers. Seriously, who doesn't love stickers? And better yet, handcrafted, beautifully designed stickers of animals and cryptids by independent artists. Well, that's where Catbugs comes in. Every month they create new sticker designs and mail them out to subscribers worldwide. They're inspired by mythical creatures and folklore, and the art draws from mythology, storytelling, with designs that range from delightfully creepy to downright gorgeous. And my personal favorite is a cute little kitsune that looks amazing on just about anything. They even host polls sometimes so you can help decide future designs. And the best part is that it's super affordable. For just $4 a month, you get exclusive stickers mailed straight to your door, making them perfect for gifting. I'm really excited to support these folks. So use the code below, treat yourself or a friend, and support small artists while getting some seriously lovely stickers. So what actually makes up the series? Now, if you thought the reading order would be straightforward, you clearly haven't been paying attention, and go ahead and dunk yourself in a Yeerk pool because Animorphs is sprawling. We're talking about 54 books on the mainline series alone, with different arcs, different writers, tones, and subplots. It sounds overwhelming at first, but the books are pretty short, so it's not the huge time sink it looks like at first glance. And this all begs the question, do you need to read every single Animorphs book? And this is a bit tricky because each book does generally move the plot forward, even if it's just by an inch, but some do it much more meaningfully than others. And the fact that a pretty significant chunk of them were written by ghostwriters, and well, it's complicated because some of these, not all of them mind you, but some definitely feel like filler. A few plot lines definitely could have been condensed, and others like the auxiliary Animorphs, the Yeerk peace movement, and the whole in-game and aftermath could have used way more breathing room to really hit home. But given how much of a money-printing juggernaut this series was at its peak, and it's honestly surprising we didn't end up with hundreds of books, and Scholastic didn't milk it until it was totally dry and exhausted. And it's kind of a miracle we got such a satisfying, if not definitive, ending. Thankfully, there are fantastic guides out there that split the series into essential, recommended, and skippable books, and I'll link a few of these below. And if you're a diehard completionist and want to read the whole thing in chronological order, Seropedia has an excellent breakdown, which I'll link below as well. So speaking about the side books, because if the war, dismemberment, and time travel in the mainline series wasn't enough for you, don't worry, there's more. Actually, a whole lot more. And surprisingly, a lot of it is actually pretty tasteful additions worth reading, with some wild and sometimes horrifying backstory. First of all, we got the 4 Megamorph books, which are kind of like summer blockbustery style stories. Fun, but usually without lasting impacts on the story. Honestly, you probably could skip these entirely if you want to, but I'd be lying if I said they weren't fun. Tobias literally kills Hitler in one of them, yes, you heard that right, and somehow a book where one of the main characters kills Hitler is a side book and isn't even considered essential reading by most fans. And if that doesn't perfectly sum up how beautifully insane the series can be, I don't know what is. That said, the Megamorph books are great reads. Megamorph 2 is a fan favorite, and since all were written by Applegate herself, the quality tends to be a notch above some of the mainline books. But if you're going to read any of the side books, the Chronicles are probably the best bet. These books really dive into the backstories of major characters and alien factions, like the Yeerks and the mysterious godlike Ellimist. Some of the information here might seem like extra fluff, but some of it is totally mind-blowing, completely recontextualizing the main series when you go back for a reread. Now, as for the Ellimist Chronicles, I'll admit I originally thought this book wasn't really necessary. I mean, I felt like he worked better as this mysterious cosmic force, but wow, it's actually totally worth it. This is Animorphs at its most hardcore sci-fi, blending concepts of fate, free will, and tackling some really cool concepts like psychology and theoretical physics. Now, finally, we have the Alternamorphs, which is a weird one. It's a 2-book spin-off series done in a choose-your-own-adventure style. You play as the 6th Animorph making life or death decisions. Sometimes you win, sometimes you die, sometimes you get stuck forever in a morph, just like in the mainline books. And that all sounds cool, right? Well, unfortunately, they're not great. The endings are limited, and most of the stories are just rehashes of plots from the main series with you slapped in as a character. They don't really add anything to the overall story. But if you were one of those kids who always fantasized about joining the Animorphs Animorphs team, these were the closest you could get to living that dream in true 90s choose-your-own-adventure fashion. But if you thought the Animorph books were done and dusted after the original run, well, my friend, in this age, anything that has made money will never truly die. And in 2011, Scholastic decided it was time to dip back into this morphine cash cow with a re-release of the series. This new edition featured updated covers and revamped editions with some minor text updates to make the pop culture references that were sprinkled throughout the original books more modern, though the core plots and characters stay the same. But I guess something has to be said for those original morphtastic, sometimes nightmare-inducing book covers, because while the original ones worked, the relaunch was quickly stopped just after 7 books due to a lack of sales. Oh, and while we're talking about covers, the international versions deserve a quick shout out too. Some of them are really interesting, with the Japanese editions as a real standout, being hand-drawn and absolutely fascinating in their own way, and it's really worth checking out the different interpretations of the unhinged cover art around the world. So you might be thinking, huge fandom and massive success in the 90s, there had to be a mountain of tie-in products and adaptations, right? Well, my friend, you win a virtual Cinnabon because you're exactly right. Animorphs spawned plenty, but the most infamous was easily the 1998 Animorphs TV show. And this thing practically oozes 90s energy. Just listen to the intro song. Now, it's not really, well, good, but it's weirdly endearing, at least if you have a soft spot for 90s shows. Now, I've got to give them credit for even attempting a live-action Animorphs series, which they clearly did not have the budget for, well, anything, and most critically, animals, many of whom in the books are regularly mauled, crushed, or otherwise brutalized. But even if the crew had money for a proper zoo's worth of critters, the logistics would have been a nightmare, but they tried. Of course, tried comes with trade-offs. For starters, they had to ditch or change most of the morphs. Rachel's elephant and grizzly bear morphs were gone, and she gets a lion instead. Now, the fight scenes are arguably just bad, but charmingly low budget at best. But worse was that it all just felt watered down. The intense and ethical debates that made the book so gripping were totally MIA, which doesn't make sense because you get the idea that in the TV show they were changed to fit the younger intended audience, but that doesn't make any sense because the intended audience presumably already read the trauma-inducing book, so they could presumably handle it. But in hindsight, it's hard to stay mad. The show was working with a shoestring budget and probably existed mostly to sell more books. The series lasted for 2 seasons, and the reception among fans is mixed at best. Many noted the poor special effects, but some of them are just endearingly janky. And if you couldn't get enough of it, there was also a book tie-in called Meet the Stars of the Animorphs in 1999, which is basically all about the actors in it. And you better believe that Animorphs went all in on tie-in merch. Posters, t-shirts, calendars, student planners, even kites. If you could think it, it probably existed. And let's not forget the holy grail of 90s product placement, fast food promotions. Taco Bell, KFC, and even a promotional travel game from Pizza Hut. But hands down, the weirdest piece of Animorphs merch were the morphine action figures. In the late 90s, Hasbro decided to release Animorph toys under the Transformer brand because, hey, they both involve shapeshifting, right? But obviously they're like 2 different series, so both audiences found it kind of confusing. And also the human forms of these morph toys were also kind of terrifying. Now, of course, we can't talk about 90s tie-ins without mentioning games, because you better believe Animorphs jumped on that bandwagon too. We got everything from simple jigsaw puzzles to more ambitious original creations like the board game The Invasion, where players choose a morph and race around the board trying to complete missions. Each mission requires a dice roll based on your morph's point value, and if you manage to win 3 missions, you can attempt the final showdown with the first player to pull it off, winning the game. It's a fun idea, but kind of weirdly competitive. You would think that a game based on a series where teamwork is kind of the only thing keeping everyone alive would be cooperative. Now, the game's got a pretty low rating on Board Game Geek, and I'm dying to know what went so wrong, because full transparency, I could not get my hands on this, so if anyone has played it, please let me know. We also got a card game, but naturally we got a whole slew of video games too, because if it was the late 90s and it had a pulse, there were probably video games. We got Animorphs Shattered Reality in 2000, which was a side-scrolling platformer with a surprisingly creative mix of levels and set pieces. Also, some of the soundtracks are absolute bangers. You play as Jake, Marco, Rachel, and Cassie, each with their signature morphs. But let's set some expectations. Most reviews you'll see for this are usually pretty low, often citing the insane difficulty due to mostly just bad controls. controls, and most sadly of all, there's not really much morphine. So what's even the point of an Animorph game with no morphine? Come on. Now, on that note, we got Animorphs for Game Boy Color in 2000, which is surprisingly from Ubisoft, and it's certainly something. Kind of imagine a simplified budget Pokemon knockoff with a color palette so bad it kind of feels like an assault on your eyes. The gameplay is basically Pokemon Light. You fight animals and aliens in turn-based combat to earn new morphs, and the gameplay again was surprisingly difficult, making it extremely hard to run from fights, and an insane save system involving a system of passwords. We also got Animorphs Know the Secret in 2000, which is a turn-based tactical combat adventure game. The graphics scream, we're doing the best we can with what little we have, and the combat system is missing any helpful stats, so you'll never know how much damage you're actually dealing. And then we also got some internet games, and these include the Yerkpool in 1997, which was published by Scholastic and was a free download on their website, basically having you guiding Jake through a maze to rescue gorillas from color-coded cages. It's simple but undeniable classic 90s charm, and honestly good for what it is. We also got Hawk Rescue, which was a flash game from the official Animorphs website where you help Tobias save the game. But heads up, I could not even find a video of gameplay for this. So again, if someone has played it, please let me know about it. Now, as far as modern games, we unfortunately got nothing, and nothing I could see on the horizon, which is a real shame because my imagination is going crazy with all the cool ideas that morphine could do in video games. Maybe something like an XCOM game, or even a 2D Metroidvania utilizing the different morphs for path progression. I don't know, it's just a shame that no one has at least tried because there's definitely some potential here. So surely if we got all these video games, we must have gotten a movie, right? Well, you best believe that they tried. For years, rumors swirled about a potential Animorphs movie. Whispers of an adaptation popped up as early as the mid-2010s, with reports suggesting that Universal Pictures was developing a film, but nothing ever came of it. Then, in 2020, the dream seemed closer than ever when an official announcement confirmed that Scholastic Entertainment and PictureStar were teaming up to make it happen, and fans were cautiously optimistic, especially when Animorph authors Applegate and Grant were said to be involved. Unfortunately, that optimism didn't last. By October 2020, Grant announced on Twitter that he and Applegate were stepping away from the project due to quote-unquote creative differences. He later elaborated that basically the producers didn't want to hear what he had to say, and their script outline was not respecting the spirit of the original story, so they left the project. And the project itself has been quiet ever since, so probably stuck in development hell, but maybe it could make a return. Stranger things have happened. But many people argue that Animorphs would work better as a mature animated series anyway. And honestly, I'm kind of with them. A darker, stylized adaptation could definitely better capture the gritty tone of the book. Something like Cyberpunk Edgerunner would be so cool. Actually, we did kind of get something like this, or at least close to it, with the graphic novels. Now, these were originally published in 2020, and as of now, just a few volumes have been released, with the Capture being the latest installment as of this video. So, are they worth it? Well, you're going to hear mixed things about this, with some people criticizing the similarity in characters' appearances, and other people saying that it feels a bit sanitized compared to the mainline books. But hey, if it helps younger kids get into the series, I'm all for it. Now, it's actually unclear on whether or not these will continue, with the latest release possibly being the last, but we're just going to have to see. But all in all, it's just great that there still is official Animorphs content coming out, even if there's no new mainline books or movies on the horizon. Now, if all these adaptations still don't quite scratch your Animorphs itch, don't worry, the fandom has got you covered. And wow, it's seriously amazing to see just how much love this series gets even decades later. You can really tell that a whole generation grew up with these books and poured their creative energy right back into the community. We've got it all: Animorph tattoos, beautifully created fan art, fan-made RPG manuals, which I'll link a great one below, and of course, memes. The memes are a thing of beauty. The dedication is real, and one look at the massive Animorph subreddit and you'll see an endless supply of fan discussions, nostalgic deep dives, and creative projects that keep the spirit of the series alive. There's also no shortage of articles, videos, and retrospectives that explore the many layers of what makes Animorphs unforgettable. It's all heartwarming stuff, honestly, and for a series about war, it sure inspired a lot of joy and bonding, even if maybe most of it is trauma bonding. So the question is, why? Why did this weird, brutal series about a secret galactic war, complete with PTSD, child soldiers, and brain slugs, not only explode in the 90s, but stick around in the cultural zeitgeist for so long. By all logic, Animorphs probably shouldn't have succeeded. It was too dark, too heavy, too different, and yet there's just nothing else quite like it. Now, I personally think that the series endures because it broke every rule about what kids media was supposed to be. These books didn't shy away from hard truths. They tackled war, trauma, and moral compromises in ways that were honest, messy, and brutal, and all without ever talking down to their audience. It was raw and terrifying, but also deeply human, and for kids grappling with growing up, with learning that the world isn't simple or fair, that kind of storytelling sticks with you. And that complexity and that willingness to trust young readers with hard topics and truths is probably why it still resonates decades later. Plus, morphing into tigers and dinosaurs is just friggin' cool, come on. So remember, never stay in morph for longer than 2 hours, and when you're flying, always hit those thermals. I want to give a huge shout out to Logan at Seropedia for helping me tremendously with fact-checking and just bouncing ideas off of. Again, Seropedia is a great resource for all things Animorphs, and if you're interested, I would highly recommend checking that out. Shout out to the brilliant loser on Reddit for helping me fact-check as well. No shout-out is ever complete without mentioning my patrons who literally keep this channel alive. You guys are seriously the best. If you want to find out more ways to support me, you can check my Patreon link below and donate for as little as $1 a month. As always, if you ever have any suggestions about what you want me to cover next, please drop a comment below. It's always really interesting to hear what you guys have to say, and I think I covered Animorphs because so many people were asking for it. Anyway, thanks again. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Half in the bag. All right, back up running.
Oh, good. So how's your NFT going?
Surprisingly well, actually.
Oh.
Considering that I don't know what an NFT is, but it's got a bunch of bids. Top Hat Monkey is officially up for sale. It's for sale on about 150 or so different types of cryptocurrency.
Is that good?
I still don't know what cryptocurrency is.
Oh.
Again, Jay, this is my first crack at this.
Okay.
Oh my God. I got a bid. A pretty sizable bid.
Oh.
Someone wants to buy my Top Hat Monkey NFT for 175 million crypto bucks. Some guy named Elon Musk.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know who it is either, but he's
Elton
offering.
John?
Not Elton John.
Oh.
Elon Musk is offering me 175 million or billion crypto bucks.
Oh.
For my Top Hat Monkey NFT. Should I take the offer?
I don't want you to get taken advantage of, Mike.
He's saying the offer is only valid for another 30 seconds, Jay.
Oh my God.
And I don't know how long this keyboard is going to work for. The enter button still works, okay? Okay. Well,
Oh, shit.
I can't type words without the letters.
Oh.
I can hit enter, Jay, but... Oh. Crypto bucks just tanked in the stock market. They're worth nothing now.
Oh. Well, thank God for my Netflix stock.
Every night, I dream the same dream.
Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is the 28th Marvel movie in 14 years. In addition to that, there's been 5 TV shows made for Disney Plus in the last 2 years. Hey, did you know that the James Bond franchise has been around for almost 60 years and there's been 27 movies in that time? Don't know why that popped into my head. Anyway, well, Mike, we ventured out back to the beautiful, majestic, magical movie theater. We got the full theatrical experience. Our first time back since Ghostbusters Afterlife.
It's true.
And it's exactly the same as it's always been.
I think my least favorite phrase in the English language is only in theaters.
Well, you know, I thought
I was
this...
okay with skipping the Batman because it's 3 hours. I watched that clip of the Joker. I didn't understand what anyone was saying.
That deleted scene where they're just mumbling the whole time.
I was like, deleted? That was a propaganda. That was a con.
That was to see if there's interest in another Joker this soon.
Yeah, and I was like, 2 minutes. Oh, I'll watch that. And I was 4 hours later. I'm like, what are they talking about? I can't understand anyone. I can't see anyone. No one's in focus. I can't see the Batman. I don't understand what the Batman is saying. I don't know what this guy's saying.
It's like in front of the lens, they put Mr. Magoo's glasses and just shot the movie through that.
Well, it was artistically done to disguise the Joker's appearance. I get that. I'm not just stupid. I'm not stupid. But
well, I thought going to see Doctor Strange for you would be a nice kind of reprieve from Star Trek Picard, but then, God damn it, that old bag of bones Patrick Stewart showed up in this movie.
Oh, trauma! Trauma! Get away from me! Get away! No. It's funny you mentioned that because I went back and I watched, and this will be a 3-part review, I suppose. I went back and I watched Spider-Man Far From Home and No Way Home.
In preparation for this one.
Yes, because I know that No Way Home sort of deals, not really, with the multiverse. I don't even know what that is.
The multiverse is used as just a gimmick in that movie.
A gimmick to have weird characters show up and things happen.